I haven't made a video in a while, but I thought I'd go ahead and make a quick one about this topic that's sort of been on my mind lately. It's this just sort of attacking or trying to add to there's this general idea in Counter-Strike. And this idea, I guess it's not in Counter-Strike, but it's in the discussion surrounding Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike esports, is this binary or dichotomy or whatever two-thing word you want to use, where there's firepower and there's tactics, and it's like on a spectrum. The firepower team has all the star players, and they're going to play quote-unquote loose, they think, or in this sort of team, they are trusting the individual stars to be their own decision makers, and then, because they're stars, they can maximize their own talents that way. They can make their own decisions. They're not in a system where you have to go to a certain point in the map at a certain point in time, so they just maximize their efficacy that way and just play a very loose style where certain people push at a certain time, or a person is left alone to make sort of his own hero plays on the CT side or make his own pushes whenever he feels that's right. It's not set up or structured in any specific way. While the tactical team has less firepower, they see that what's best works for them is when they all have a very set plan, and they all do certain things at a certain time. They do an execute, or they do a very specific fake, and they have to coordinate that all that, and work together as a team to maximize their efficiency, because they don't have the skill. They have to trick people. They have to use tactics and good utility to be successful. And there's obviously okay, if you want to do a third thing, it's the middle, a hybrid between the two. It's a spectrum, and maybe a Fnatic or someone. Fnatic 2015 Fnatic is probably, or late 2015 Fnatic or early 2016 Fnatic, after Pronex left when they got Dennis. I mean, that's what people usually cite as the most loose firepower heavy team. And then maybe Big today, not a lot of talent at all. I mean, they're not doing super great, but they did have that one good result at the major. Now you can talk about the bug and everything else, but they're a team that's very tactical, very innovative, tries to do different things and tries to succeed that way. It's the tactical team. But when I think about this setup, I think it obviously can be improved when you only have two descriptors to describe teams. Are they firepower focused or are they tactical focused? Because I mean, this is just a very simple, quick way of describing it. I think a better way of describing it, the way I've been thinking about it for a while, is actually not thinking about it in terms of tactics and firepower, but adding a third thing, which is coordination or teamwork. I guess there's this third word isn't super solid in my mind. I think coordination is more what I think of. And when I'm talking about coordination, I think of how teams interact with players in the mid-round, or in a situation that can't be structured, how they play off each other in unexpected ways. Not every situation is scripted. In a post plant, maybe just a weird guy gets picked off, and it's two guys rotating from B and meeting up with two guys already stuck in the back of A site. I don't even know what map I'm talking about right now, but just a scenario that's unexpected where people are in unusual positions. You have to sort of just communicate with each other, or just have a natural feel for what each person's going to do and know how to react in the best way possible. I think the best example of this would probably be SK in 2016, when they're the best team in the world during the SK era. They were very good at maximizing, doing the best possible plays in the mid round and really reacting well. And it helps that Cold Zero is a really, really good mid round player. And I guess in the modern era, you talk about teams like still SK, but Astralis definitely, and then you have a Zipnix there, who's also a very good, situational player. And then maybe even Gambit maybe not the less, maybe not so much the new team. I still have to watch more of them, but the old team with Zeus seemed very coordinated, especially on CT side retakes. I think CT side retakes are actually like the best, or what I think is the best indicator of whether a team has good coordination. I mean, coordination could obviously be terrorists, in a bomb site, and they don't know which way the counter terrorists are coming in from to do the retake, so they have to figure out the angles and best play off each other and use what utility and figure all that out. But I think CT side retakes are great because as terrorists, that's something you can set up before the game. You can line up the smokes and say, okay, you go here. But in a terrorist side, it never CT side doing a retake. I mean, it's always. I don't think, unless you're playing a specific retake setup, usually it's not expected that you're gonna fall. That the site's gonna fall. The best case scenario is that you hold and you get the site defenders take down the terrorists, and then you win the round that way. So it's always sort of a backup plan. Okay, so that didn't work out well. It's 4v3. Should we try to retake? Okay, what do we have? We have 2 smokes, 4 flashes, and a Molotov. Okay, and they have to sort of figure it out that way. It's never perfect. It's never, it's not planned unless it's like a purposeful retake setup, right? So I think that's a great indicator. I think Gambit used to win a lot of those. So I always think of Gambit as being up there, even though they weren't the best team, like a top 4 team. I thought they were really good at those CT side retakes. So I think they had a lot of coordination. I always try to say that in articles. But I actually wanted to connect to another opponent. I think, so I think it's just every time you add more variables and just talk about teams in more, vectors or in more dimensions, I think it's going to be more helpful. So saying 3 is better than 2 is, I think, kind of obvious. So I think, it's just useful to talk about that coordination. But I thought, if I attach this time element, it actually really drives home the point that it's useful to talk about teams in 3s, or in this 3-part setup I'm setting up. So when I think about tactics, like a tactical team, I think those teams strengths are how they set up prior to the game or in between rounds. Like how they talk or communicate or plan in non-action scenarios. So that's practice and timeouts and halftime and stuff like that. So setting up the really good pistol round with the just the right amount of utility to get into the site without sacrificing the armor on the other players. Not buying too much utility or too little, and doing just the right smokes and just the right flashes, or just the right flashes. Not even buying a smoke, or buying the smokes and not the flashes. But anyway, how they approach the game before it starts, or how they approach the round before it starts. That's why I think of tactical teams. Like, I know in this sort of round I'm going to throw this grenade here. It doesn't have to be T side, it could be CT side. It's like, I need to throw this Molotov at this point so they don't rush us, and then I'm going to post here, and then at another 30 seconds I'm going to throw a smoke, so that way it's still sort of covered off, and then okay, we know that they're not going to be this part. Just how you plan for the round, basically, is how I think of tactical teams. Now, for the firepower teams, I really think those teams are just really good in the second, in the 5-second battle duel scenarios, right? They think, okay, I need to take this peak now, and they're just really good at executing the duel. They're talented aimers, or they don't necessarily have to have super great aim. It's just like maybe they have a really good sense to how to take the fight in that 5 seconds. They just know the right way to jiggle peek, or to bait out jiggle peek and bait out the op shot, then go in and spray down the op or something like this. There's really talented 1v1 duelists, or just good at spray downs or something like this. So they're really good in 5-second intervals, or maybe I don't know how long. Fights can't last that long, maybe 10 seconds at most. But for the coordinated teams, I think there's this middle ground. I don't think, the tactical teams and the firepower teams are really separated by this middle space, and I like to think that coordinated teams operate really good in like 30-second, 45-second intervals, right? This is when, you only have so much time left on the timer, and you have to do it within a certain time period, but you don't have to go like this second right now and just run into the site. You have a little bit of breathing room. It's on the fly, it's in the moment, but it's not in the second. You have a moment, you have a couple seconds, you have 15 seconds, 20 seconds to think things through and just be really good in short spaces of time. So, you can think about like other careers and stuff like that. Like a stand-up comedian might be really good, like a tactical team or something like that. He's really good at thinking about his set beforehand, and has all the time in the world to think of a joke and then try it out on stage. And if it doesn't work, he can come back and stuff like that. He has infinite preparation. But someone who's in improv, it's supposed to be somewhat a new scenario every time. They have to think on their feet, and they have to quickly react in sort of a free association exercise or something like that, where you just have to jump from thing to thing as rapidly as you can. That's like the firepower team. They have to be good in the second. And you can even think about sports, like tennis would be a good example. Like before the points start, because there's the set times between the points. That could be like a tactical element, but actually in the point itself is more of the firepower thing, thinking of the second. But maybe in basketball, like the shot clock's 24 seconds in professional, and that they have time to set that up and think about how the shots could be executed. Now the shot itself and how that person sets up and actually throws the ball into the air is the 1 second talent, the short interval talent. But you need that middle interval, thinking on your feet, but having a little bit of time talent as well. So I just think this is sort of a useful way of thinking about Counter-Strike, because I think some teams are really good at being mid-round, middle time teams, and some are just good in the second, and then some are really good at planning and preparation. Or they could be good at 2 of the 3, or good at all 3 to certain degrees.